Welcome to Naveen TechHub.
From quick Ansible commands to reusable playbooks, let's understand automation step by step.
Imagine you are wrapping up your day, and suddenly you need to check the network connection on 50 different servers. Or maybe you just need to restart a single service across all of them. You have two options, and both are frustrating. You could log in to each server one by one, typing the same password and the exact same command 50 separate times. Or you could spend 30 minutes writing a permanent automation script just to do a 10-second job. Fortunately, there is a middle ground called an Ansible Ad-Hoc command. Think of it like reaching for a calculator to do a quick addition problem. You wouldn't build a complex Excel spreadsheet for a simple math equation, and you don't need a full script for a quick server task. By mastering these commands, you can execute instant operations across your entire fleet of computers straight from your terminal. You get the power of automation without having to write a single line of permanent code. Every ad hoc command follows one simple formula. You type the word Ansible, followed by the target, the module, and the arguments. The target is exactly who you want to talk to. This could be one specific computer or an entire group of them, like all of your web servers. Next is the module, which you trigger by typing -m. A module is the specific tool or action you want Ansible to perform. It works just like pressing a dedicated button on a universal remote control. Finally, we have the arguments, triggered with -a. These are the specific instructions you feed into that tool. For example, if your tool is a software installer, your argument tells it exactly which software to install. Grasping this single pattern allows you to apply the same logic to hundreds of different modules, saving you from having to learn the unique quirks of every individual server command. To reach out to those target computers, Ansible checks an inventory file. You can think of this as a master address book that lists the names and locations of every machine in your fleet. When you write your command, you can target the word all to hit every machine in the book, or target a category like web. If you only want to test a single machine, you just add the --limit flag followed by the machine's name. Before doing real work, test the connection by typing Ansible all-m ping. Ansible's ping goes deeper than a standard network check. It verifies it can log in securely and that a valid Python environment is ready to execute commands. By taking a few seconds to verify your access and dependencies first, you ensure that your commands will actually work. This simple habit prevents errors from rippling across your entire network. Once connected, you can start running basic system operations using the command and shell modules. The command module is your safest default. It sends instructions directly to the operating system. If you need to use complex characters like pipes or redirect symbols to filter your text, you will need to switch to the shell module, which processes your input exactly like a terminal window would. Often, these basic commands require administrative powers. By adding the --become flag to the end of your line, you tell Ansible to elevate its privileges, executing your instructions with full system authority. Let's put that to use. To install a web server application like Nginx across all your machines, you use the package module. Because installing software requires administrative power, you must include the --become flag for it to succeed. With the software installed, your immediate next step is to turn it on. You just run a second command using the service module, providing arguments that tell the Nginx service to start running. Notice that if you run that exact same installation command a second time, Ansible realizes the software is already present and makes no changes. This built-in safety, called idempotency, ensures that rerunning your commands won't break a system that's already working correctly. Combining these basic modules with administrative authority takes your standard command line and turns it into a powerful, fleet-wide deployment tool. Sometimes you don't want to make changes, you just need information. Using the setup module acts as a reconnaissance tool. It gathers deep system details, like how much memory a server has or its exact operating system version, without you ever needing to log in. When you do want to make a change but feel hesitant, you can use a dry run. By adding the --check flag, you can safely preview exactly what would happen on a server without actually altering any live configurations. And when things do go wrong, the feedback is clear. If you see an error message, it usually means keys don't match, you forgot to request administrative permissions, or the target is missing Python. By relying on dry runs and learning to read these straightforward error messages, you can safely manage hundreds of computers without the fear of accidentally breaking your live environment. To see how all of this connects, let's look at this step-by-step flowchart showing the entire journey of a command, from the moment you hit enter to the final success message. First, your terminal checks the inventory file to translate your target names into actual IP addresses. Next, it takes the tool you requested, packages it up, and securely travels across the network to the target machine. Finally, the action is executed, and a status message travels back to your screen, lighting up green for a success or yellow if a change was made. Seeing how these pieces move helps you predict how a command will behave, and makes it much easier to spot exactly where a connection might be failing. As powerful as these commands are, there is a strict rule to follow. If you find yourself typing the exact same command every week, or if a task requires multiple steps in a very specific order, it shouldn't be done from the command line. Complex deployments require structure. You need a permanent record of what was done and a way to guarantee the exact same outcome every single time. When your daily work evolves from single, quick fixes into 10 or 20 connected tasks, you leave the command line behind and graduate to Ansible Playbooks, and that is exactly what we will build in our next video. If you manage IT infrastructure, you already know how to log into a single server and type out a few commands to get it running. But when you need to scale up to 50 or 500 servers daily, typing commands by hand becomes an exhausting, error-prone bottleneck. That is exactly where Ansible Playbooks come in. Instead of running operations one at a time, a playbook allows you to write down your entire configuration process as actionable code. Take a look at this comparison. On the left, we have an Ad-Hoc command, great for a quick ping. But on the right, the playbook acts as a comprehensive blueprint, coordinating exactly what happens across your environment. And you don't need an advanced degree in software engineering to write one. Playbooks are written in a data format called YAML. It reads almost like a simple grocery list, making it highly human-readable and accessible to anyone on your team. By putting your configurations into a playbook, you pull infrastructure management out of the realm of manual chores. You create a documented, instantly repeatable baseline for your systems. Let's map out a web server deployment. Identify target servers, install Nginx, and start the service. Translating that into YAML starts with the play, targeting machines using the hosts parameter. Below that, we define tasks, calling specific Ansible modules to do the heavy lifting. When we execute this blueprint using the Ansible Playbook command, we get a terminal output that looks like this. That yellow changed status is Ansible reporting that it successfully found the server, installed the software, and altered the system state. Once you grasp this basic hierarchy, a play containing a list of tasks, you have the foundation to automate entirely new static server setups from scratch. But what happens if you run that exact same playbook a second time? Will it try to reinstall the software and accidentally overwrite your configurations? Ansible prevents errors using idempotency. Before making changes, it checks the server state. If Nginx is already installed, it leaves it alone. In this terminal comparison, the first run made changes, but the second run returns a green OK status. Nothing was needlessly reinstalled. Idempotency is what turns a rigid script into a safe, reliable enforcer. You can run a playbook every hour, and it will only ever act to correct systems that have drifted from your desired state. As you scale, you will quickly run into a bottleneck if you type exact, hard-coded values into your tasks. If your playbook explicitly demands an Ubuntu package, it will instantly fail if you try to run it on a Red Hat server. We fix this using variables and system facts. Instead of a specific package name, we drop in a variable tag, and Ansible fills in the correct detail. By attaching a when condition, we can even tell Ansible to check the operating system before executing. We can even use loops to feed a list of 5 different software packages into a single task, saving us from writing the same block of YAML 5 times in a row. Injecting these variables, conditions, and loops converts a single-use script into a highly adaptable engineering asset that can be deployed safely across diverse environments. There are also moments in automation where an action should only happen in reaction to something else. For example, if you update a configuration file, you need to restart the web service for it to take effect, but you don't want to restart the service if the file wasn't actually changed. In this diagram, Ansible solves this using handlers. A handler is a dormant task at the bottom of your playbook. It only wakes up and executes if a normal task successfully makes a change and shoots a notify signal down to it. You will often pair these handlers with dynamic templates, which are customizable files that automatically adjust their settings to match whichever server they land on. When a template successfully deploys a customized config, it notifies the handler to safely restart the service. This reactive structure ensures your system runs efficiently. Services are never restarted or interrupted unless a tangible change demands it. Experimenting on a local virtual machine is one thing. Pushing automated changes simultaneously across hundreds of live production servers carries immense risk. A single typo can bring down an entire network. To protect against that, look at this terminal output using check mode and diff mode. This acts as a dry run. Before touching any actual infrastructure, Ansible previews exactly what it intends to add in green and what it intends to remove in red. You can also use tags, which act like labels on your tasks. Instead of running a massive hour-long playbook, you can tell Ansible to only execute the task's tagged database, leaving the rest of the infrastructure untouched. And when it comes to security, you never want passwords or API keys sitting in plain text YAML. Ansible Vault allows you to heavily encrypt those specific variables, ensuring your secrets stay locked down during the run. Using these tools reflects the mindset of a professional engineer. At scale, predictable, risk-free execution is always prioritized over sheer speed. Because playbooks are just text files, the best practice is to store them in a version control system like Git. This creates an auditable history of every change made to your infrastructure. When we step back, we can trace this entire lifecycle on this chart. We combine our inventory with our playbook. The play targets the hosts. The tasks call the modules, and Ansible pushes those modules through an encrypted, secure connection directly to our managed nodes. Navigating this pipeline effectively leads to the ultimate goal of infrastructure automation, achieving a stable, perfectly aligned desired state. Playbooks give you immense control over your environments. But as your infrastructure continues to grow, you will eventually want to package these blueprints into Ansible roles, allowing you to share and reuse your automation effortlessly across your entire organization. That is the next step in your engineering journey.
Now that commands and playbooks are clear, let's move to reusable Ansible roles and a practical project.
Let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer, folks. If you've been writing basic Ansible scripts and suddenly find your code getting completely out of hand, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a highly practical, step-by-step engineering approach to upgrade you from those messy, ad hoc commands to a beautifully clean, reusable Ansible production project. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the scaling problem, enter Ansible roles, build out a real Nginx project, run production deployments, cover best practices, and wrap up with some crucial interview takeaways. Section 1, the Ansible scaling problem. Okay, so here's the reality. When you're just starting out, a single YAML file works perfectly fine. You install a package, start a service, and boom, you're happy. But what happens when you need to manage hundreds of servers across your dev, staging, and production environments? That single playbook quickly balloons into a tangled, 2,000-line, unmaintainable nightmare. The big question is, how do we actually organize this code like a real production project? It basically comes down to the difference between copying and pasting your code 50 times versus engineering a clean modular architecture. Think about it. In a messy playbook, if a file path changes, you're literally hunting it down like a needle in a haystack. But with a role-based architecture, you change it in exactly one logical place. It's a total game changer. Section 2. Enter Ansible roles. Concept first. What exactly a playbook in this new architecture? Well, think of a playbook simply as your high-level orchestrator. It defines the desired state and the targets. It's essentially telling Ansible, hey, take these specific web servers and apply this configuration to them. It delegates all the actual heavy lifting. Now, a role, on the other hand, is the actual work engine. It beautifully packages your tasks, your variables, and your handlers into a perfectly self-contained unit. So instead of writing out your database installation steps over and over again in 10 different playbooks, you just call the database role. You build it once and you reuse it everywhere across your enterprise. That's the power of roles. And to achieve this incredible reusability, Ansible uses a very standard directory structure. It perfectly separates your logic. You've got tasks for your main steps, handlers for triggered services, templates for your dynamic configs, and defaults for variables. Because this structure is standardized, literally any DevOps engineer in the world can jump into your project and instantly understand it. No more guessing where the configuration lives. Section 3. Building the Nginx project. Let's get hands-on. Take a look at this production-ready directory structure. This represents a true enterprise project environment. Right at the top level, we have our inventory to define our servers, our site.yaml playbook acting as the main entry point, and then this beautifully organized roles directory containing our exact web server logic. Diving inside our tasks folder, our code is highly focused. We use the built-in package module, like apt in this case, to safely install Nginx. And by setting the state to present, we just let Ansible handle all the heavy lifting. If the package is already installed, Ansible does absolutely nothing. It just moves on. That is smart declarative automation, saving you from writing messy scripts just to check if a package exists. Next up, we have Ginger 2 templates. This right here is exactly how we avoid hard coding values. By defining our application port as a dynamic variable inside those double curly braces, this exact same template file can deploy port 8080 for your dev team and port 80 for production. One file, multiple environments. It's a massive time saver for sure. Now, nobody wants to accidentally restart a production web server 50 times a day, right? Handlers solve this completely. They patiently wait until the very end of your playbook run, and they only trigger a restart if a configuration file actually changed. This guarantees zero unnecessary downtime. It's such a simple concept, but it is absolutely critical for real-world reliability. And finally, look how incredibly clean our main site.yml playbook has become. It simply maps our target web server's inventory group directly to our brand new role. Your top-level playbook is now so easy to read and manage. Any new team member can just glance at this file and instantly know exactly what is being deployed and to which servers. Section 4. Running production deployments. Let's map out the exact execution architecture. Remember, Ansible is agentless, which is just brilliant. From your control node, it pulls your inventory, merges your roles and variables, generates the precise Python code needed, and then pushes it securely over SSH to achieve that desired state on your Linux servers. There are absolutely zero agents to install or maintain on your target machines. And when we execute this, something magical happens. If we run it a second time, it results in zero changes. This is called idempotency, and it is the absolute hallmark of professional automation. You should be able to run your playbook against a healthy production environment during peak traffic hours, and it should simply report OK without breaking a single thing.
Section 5. Production Best Practices.
Now, we've all seen those absolute horror stories of API keys or database passwords getting leaked on public Git repositories, right? So how do we store sensitive secrets safely when our infrastructure code is meant to be shared with the whole engineering team? Well, I'll tell you one thing, hard coding is never the answer. The industry standard answer here is Ansible Vault. It transparently encrypts your sensitive variables. When you run your deployment, you provide the vault password, and Ansible decrypts the secrets strictly in memory during execution. The plain text never touches the disk, which means you can safely commit your encrypted variables straight into your version control system. So, to deploy like a true senior engineer, follow these pro tips. Keep your playbooks small, favor reusable roles, never hard-code secrets, and always use version control. But honestly, most importantly, make -- check mode your best friend. It performs a dry run, showing you exactly what would change, which will save you from catastrophic production failures before you even apply them. Section 6. Revision and interview takeaways. Take a mental screenshot of this exact technical flow for your next DevOps interview. You need to be able to explain how the control node reads the inventory, triggers the playbook, which then unpacks your roles and tasks, and uses built-in modules over SSH to finally reach the desired state. If you can explain this flow clearly, I promise you, you will absolutely ace the technical round. You now understand the full progression from messy standalone commands to a clean, production-ready role architecture. You've got the engineering blueprint right in your hands. The only question left is, what part of your infrastructure are you going to automate and clean up today?